that means is that you have an opportunity now to design the person that people see online. Design the human that they're interacting with, not just on your resume, not just in person, but the person that they see when they search you up and decide whether or not you're going to get that next interview and next opportunity. So let's talk about what being a person online, being alive online looks like. Because really, in today's day and age, if you can't find someone online, I mean, the hard truth is they might as well not really exist, at least in the employment sector. Because what people are doing is they're making sure that you are who you say you are on a paper. I mean, the irony of it is that you really can design whoever you are online, so it's just an extension of your resume, or it can be. But not having that means that they can't find you. It means that they can't validate things that they see on your resume, so they're less likely to take you on or get you to the next stage of the interview process. So what does it look like to build who you are online? So these are two different portraits of two different monarchs. One of them, on the left, well, my right, your left, is one of the most beloved English monarchs of all time, Elizabeth, the current queen. On the other hand, you have Henry VIII, who's known as being a pretty horrible dude. In fact, there's actually a TV show called The Tudors that was all about how horrible he is as a person. Now, when you look at these two portraits, it conjures up a very different set of emotions and ideas, if you know who they are. One of them, you think about how bad a person he was, how many of his wives he executed at different times throughout his career. And the other one is, from some perspectives, the reason that Canada hasn't completely split off from the crown entirely, because people still like Queen Elizabeth. Every single one of you have a portrait online that's been painted of you and painted by you. Every time you get tagged in something online, in a picture, in a video, in an Instagram story, in a Snapchat story, in a video on YouTube, people are adding brush strokes to that portrait. Every time you post online and you put a new piece of your profile out there into the world, you're painting the picture of who you are. So that when people look you up, or when they Google you immediately after the first round of interviews, or when the employer sees something interesting on your resume, they're immediately seeing the portrait that's being painted of you online. And if that portrait is something that they like, if you look like a credible, impressive person, then they are more likely to bring you back for the next round of interviews or offer you a position. If that picture is something that they don't necessarily like, that immediately reduces your chances of being hired. I'll say from now that I've never actually gotten a position just based off what was on my resume. And that was the original version of how job hunting was done, right? You have a resume, you put it out there, you send it to tons of people, they read it, they say, okay, this person looks like a credible human being, they look like this is what I want, and then they call you in. And then their next step is what they see in person. But now there's a third step. Every interview I've ever been to has asked about my quote-unquote extracurricular activities, podcasting, media projects or otherwise, writing that I've done, things and pieces of content that I've produced that are beyond the scope of what sometimes even appears on your resume. And that's because right now, the baseline of education, the baseline of the knowledge and experiences that you've gained through schooling or otherwise is something that a lot of other people have as well. So when it comes to building your online profile, painting the portrait of yourself that is going to exist online, the key word here is differentiation. How are you going to differentiate yourself from the other people around you? How are you going to make yourself look unique, like a candidate that's suited specifically for that role? Now, when I say this, it sounds kind of like, well, yeah, you're in marketing. Of course you have to make yourself sound different. Or you're going to, say, a high-level accounting or finance or otherwise position. But this has become something that matters all the way down the line, especially for some of you who talk about customer-facing roles in retail, hospitality, or otherwise. I mean, specifically for someone like yourself who's looking at makeup artistry, or if you want to start a store on Etsy. People look up who you are before they purchase from you or before they hire from you, because now what you build online is showcasing a bit of who you are and how you're going to interact with the rest of the organization internally and other potential customers externally. there are two kinds of credibility that exist in the world. And credibility is really what you're building when you paint your picture online. There's technical credibility and there's perceived credibility. Your technical credibility is what shows up on a piece of paper, on your resume. So for instance, on my bio, Mo Waja is a professional speaker, marketer, entrepreneur, the author of Presented Back the Speaker's Guide, the host of Talking Speaking with Mo Waja podcast, the host of the Toronto Story Archive podcast, works for digital marketing, worked with clients, and etc., 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 etc. All that on paper. Whether it's on my resume or on a bio that I've written, all of that is technical credibility. Things that have been written about me or that I've written about myself that paint the picture of who I am and why I seem like an interesting person for this position. The next step is your perceived credibility. Your perceived credibility is based upon the interpersonal interactions that people have with you and the interactions that they see you having with other people online. So when we're talking about social media and what we do here, we're moving beyond the resume. And we're looking at your perceived credibility. When people see you, what do they think about you? What's their first impression? What kind of an impression have you made? And do you seem like someone who's going to be a contributor to whatever that organization happens to be? Make sense? Great. So, the role of social media. Social media is your voice online. Social media is the world's first impression of who you are as a person. If they've never met you, if you haven't met this person at a networking event or otherwise, all they have to go off of is your social media profile. The social media profile, well, the two social media profiles that employers generally nowadays look at the most are Instagram and LinkedIn. So LinkedIn, and we'll talk specifically about LinkedIn because I don't think from what I heard there that a lot of people here are using LinkedIn. LinkedIn is super important. No matter what position you're going for, having a LinkedIn account is pretty critical. And the reason for that is because, one, your LinkedIn account is your resume online. Even if they've received your resume in person or on a piece of paper, your resume online and who you are as a professional in whatever field that happens to be is represented on LinkedIn. There's a misconception publicly that LinkedIn is only for highly corporate individuals who are out there and going from a suit and tie kind of environment. But LinkedIn is used by everyone for everyone. And why it's important is because it positions you in a way to be found by other potential employers, and it allows you to network with other people online, connect with other people who might have goals or opportunities that fit you and fit what you want to do. So it's the world's first impression of who you are. The next is it's your voice online. So producing content is something that we are going to talk about, and producing content is super important because even though searching for a job is really a job in and of itself, it's a 24-hour thing that people are constantly doing, finding their next level of employment. That doesn't mean that you can be radio silent online at the same time. People want to see that you're interacting on some level with whatever profession you're going into, or at the very least with current events that are happening online. So, it's your voice. It's how you express your opinions and how you interact with the rest of the world and show yourself as a present, active, and interested person who's engaged, especially in the industry at hand. Next, it's a visual and verbal or written representation of your personality, who you are as a person. And so what that allows people to see is not just what you've put on paper, it's giving them a further level of detail into who you are, into whether you'll be a fit for the culture that exists within that organization. And so when you are positioning yourself online, you need to be strategic in both where you're present and how you're interacting with other people.